They say success is the best revenge. But silence. Silence is the weapon that destroys your enemies before they even know they're bleeding. 3 years ago, Marcus Sterling left his wife in a rainy parking lot, tossing her a divorce settlement that barely covered rent. He called her a leech. He called her useless. Today, Marcus is standing in the ballroom of the Plaza Hotel holding a glass of cheap champagne waiting to beg a mystery CEO for a lifeline to save his failing company. He doesn't know that the woman he's about to beg is the same woman he threw away. Watch closely. The takedown begins now. The chandelier crystals of the Grand Meridian Hotel didn't just sparkle, they seemed to judge. Under the golden glow of 1,000 bulbs, the elite of New York's venture capital world mingled with the desperate. It was the annual Aurora Summit, the night where fortunes were made and outdated empires came to die. Emma Andrea stood near a marble pillar obscured by the shadow of a massive fern. She wasn't wearing the sequined, attention-seeking gowns that the other wives and socialites wore. She wore a sharp midnight blue tuxedo suit tailored to within an inch of its life. To the untrained eye, she looked like high-end staff, or perhaps a personal assistant to someone important. That was the point. Emma had learned the hard way that invisibility was a superpower. She checked her watch. A Patek Philippe vintage with a cracked leather strap that she refused to replace. It was 7:55 p.m. The board of directors for Novus Horizon, the shadowy tech conglomerate that had disrupted the logistics market 6 months ago, was set to arrive at 8:00 p.m. Emma took a sip of sparkling water. She needed a clear head. "I told you she's pathetic. Look at her." The voice was like a cheese grater against Emma's spine. She didn't need to turn around to identify the speaker. The cadence, the arrogant drawl, the slight nasal pinch, it was Marcus Sterling, her ex-husband. Emma stiffened but didn't turn. She focused on the condensation sliding down her glass. "Don't engage," she told herself. "Not yet. The trap isn't set." "Marcus, honey, keep your voice down," a woman purred. It was Julianne. Of course it was. The woman Marcus had upgraded to 3 years ago. The woman who had been his secretary while Emma was at home raising his children and managing his bookkeeping for free. "Why should I—" Marcus laughed, the sound loud and wet. He stepped into Emma's line of sight, blocking her view of the entrance. He looked older. The stress of the last few years had thinned his hair, and the bespoke Italian suit he wore couldn't hide the paunch of a man who drank too much scotch to cope with declining stock prices. "Emma," Marcus said, his voice dripping with mock surprise. "I didn't think you could afford a ticket to the Aurora. Did you sneak in through the kitchen, or are you serving drinks tonight?" Emma finally turned her head. She looked him in the eye, her expression flat, unreadable. "Hello, Marcus. Julianne, you both look appropriate." Julianne tittered, clutching Marcus's arm. She was wearing a red dress that was loud enough to wake the dead. "Oh, don't be bitter, sweetie. It causes wrinkles. And you really can't afford any more of those." Marcus smirked, swirling his drink. "I'm actually surprised to see you. I heard you moved back to your mother's place in Queens. What brings you here, looking for a rich husband to leech off of? I have to warn you, the men here are investors, not charities. They recognize a bad investment when they see one." The insult landed exactly where he intended, on the old bruise of her insecurity. 3 years ago, that comment would have made her cry. It would have sent her running to the bathroom to hyperventilate. But the Emma of 3 years ago was dead. "I'm here for business, Marcus," Emma said calmly. Marcus threw his head back and laughed, drawing the attention of a nearby group of investors from J.P. Morgan. "Business? Did you hear that, Julianne? She's here for business? What are you selling Emma Tupperware knitted scarves?" He leaned in close, his breath smelling of expensive whiskey and stale cigars. "Let me give you some advice for old time's sake. Leave. You're embarrassing yourself. This room is for the sharks. You're just krill." "I'm just waiting for a friend," Emma said, her voice steady, though her heart was hammering a war rhythm against her ribs. "A friend," Marcus sneered. You don't have friends in this tax bracket. You have creditors. He adjusted his tie, puffing out his chest. I, on the other hand, am here to close the deal of the century. You've heard of Novus Horizon. Of course you haven't. You probably don't even read the Wall Street Journal. They are looking to acquire a legacy firm. Sterling Industries is the front runner. When I walk out of here tonight, I'll be worth $50 million. Emma's lips twitched. It was a microscopic movement, a tiny fracture in her mask. Is that so? I heard Novus Horizon has very strict standards for leadership competence. Marcus's face reddened. Excuse me. I heard. Emma continued, stepping closer to him, invading his personal space for the first time. That the CEO of Novus hates inefficiency, and Sterling Industries has posted losses for 4 consecutive quarters. Why would they buy a sinking ship, Marcus? The air between them crackled. Julianne looked between them, sensing the shift in dynamic, but too dim to understand the danger. You useless, jealous little... Marcus began, raising a finger. Mr. Sterling. A deep voice interrupted them. A man in a headset holding a clipboard had appeared beside them. He looked flustered. Yes, Marcus snapped, turning his aggression on the staff member. Can't you see I'm in the middle of a conversation? I apologize, sir, the man said, but we need to clear this area. The delegation from Novus Horizon has just pulled up to the valet. Security protocol requires the main corridor to be clear. Marcus's entire demeanor flipped instantly. The arrogance vanished, replaced by a desperate, fawning excitement. He grabbed Julianne's hand. This is it. This is the moment. Come on, let's get to the front. I need to shake the CEO's hand before anyone else does. He turned back to Emma one last time. Move out of the way, Emma. Go stand by the toilets. Try not to ruin the view for the people who actually matter. Marcus shoved past her his shoulder, checking hers hard enough to make her stumble slightly in her heels. He marched toward the velvet ropes, dragging Julianne behind him, eager to prostrate himself before the new kings of industry. Emma watched him go. She reached up and brushed the spot on her shoulder where he had hit her. Are you all right, ma'am? The man with the headset asked, his voice dropping to a respectful whisper. Emma looked at the man. She smiled. It was a cold, sharp smile. I'm fine, David, she said. Is the team ready? David nodded, tapping his earpiece. Yes, Ms. Andrea, the board is waiting for your signal to enter. Shall I tell them to hold the doors? Emma looked at Marcus's retreating back, watching him jostle for position at the front of the line. No, Emma said, buttoning her tuxedo jacket. Let them in. It's showtime. To understand the magnitude of the execution that was about to take place in the Grand Meridian Ballroom, you have to understand the silence of the house on Elm Street 3 years ago. The divorce hadn't been a battle. A battle implies 2 sides fighting. This had been a slaughter. Marcus Sterling had been a mid-level executive when they met. Emma was a brilliant actuary with a double major in mathematics and logistics from MIT. When they married, she quit her job to support his dream of starting Sterling Industries. She wrote the business plan. She designed the supply chain algorithms that gave them their first edge. She stayed up until 400 a.m. filing the taxes while Marcus slept. But because her name wasn't on the door, Marcus convinced himself and the world that he had done it alone. The decline started when the money started rolling in. Marcus became enamored with his own reflection. He stopped listening to her advice on market pivots. He started listening to sycophants who told him he was a genius. Then came the late nights, the business trips to Cabo, and finally Julianne. The day he kicked her out, it was raining. A cliché, but the universe rarely has original timing. You're just dead weight, Emma, he had said, standing in the doorway while she loaded a cardboard box into her 10-year-old sedan. You have no ambition. You're risk-averse. You're boring. I need a partner who looks the part, someone who shines. He handed her a check for $5,000. Consider this severance. Don't contact me again unless you're signing the papers to waive your rights to the company stock. She had signed. She was too broken, too humiliated to fight. She took the $5,000 and drove to a motel on the outskirts of Jersey City. For 2 weeks she stared at the ceiling, wondering if he was right. Was she useless? She had spent 10 years building a man who discarded her like a wrapper. She had no resume gap, no recent references, and her confidence was ash. Then the anger came. It didn't come like a fire. It came like ice. Emma looked at the $4,200 she had left after the motel bill. She didn't buy new clothes. She didn't buy alcohol. She bought a high-powered server rack from a liquidation sale of a failed crypto startup. She moved into her mother's basement, the very basement Marcus was currently mocking in the ballroom, and she started to code. She knew Sterling Industries' weakness. She knew Marcus had ignored her warnings about the supply chain volatility in Southeast Asia. She knew he was over-leveraged in fossil fuels. So she built Novus. It started as an algorithm. The Ghost Protocol, she called it. An AI-driven logistics manager that could predict supply chain fractures 3 weeks before they happened. She didn't pitch it to investors with a smile and a low-cut dress. She pitched it anonymously on the dark web of high finance forums. The results spoke for themselves. A small shipping company in Greece used her code and saved $40 million in a quarter. Then a pharmaceutical giant in Switzerland. Word spread. Who was this architect? Who was behind the code? Emma incorporated Novus Horizon in Delaware under a shell company. She hired a proxy board of directors, seasoned veterans she recruited via encrypted channels to be the face of the company. She conducted meetings via voice-modulated calls. She became the Wizard of Oz, but with better math. In 3 years, Novus Horizon went from a basement project to a unicorn valuation. They were the fixers, the silent giants. And now they were looking to acquire a physical infrastructure network in North America to deploy their software fully. Sterling Industries was the perfect target, not because it was good, but because it was failing. It had the warehouses, the trucks, the planes, but the brain guiding them, Marcus, was rotting. Emma had orchestrated this entire summit. She had leaked the rumor that Novus was buying. She had ensured Marcus received an invite. She had baited the hook. Back in the present, the ballroom doors groaned open. The hush that fell over the room was instant. Marcus was practically vibrating at the front of the rope line. He smoothed his hair, flashing his whitest veneers. Here they come, Julianne. Smile. Look expensive. First came the security detail. Massive men in black suits who scanned the crowd with professional paranoia. Then came the board. There was Thomas Wright, the former CFO of Amazon, now working for Emma. There was Sarah Jenkins, a logistics prodigy from Singapore. There was Arthur Pendleton, an old money investor who acted as the chairman. The crowd gasped. These were heavy hitters. Marcus stepped forward, extending his hand toward Arthur Pendleton. Mr. Pendleton, Marcus Sterling, CEO of Sterling Industries. It is an honor to... Arthur Pendleton didn't even slow down. He looked through Marcus as if he were made of glass. He walked right past the outstretched hand. Marcus blinked, stunned. He turned, looking for the next person to grab. Mr. Wright Thomas. We met at Davos. Thomas Wright walked past him too, his eyes fixed on a point in the back of the room. The whispers started. Who are they looking for? Marcus was sweating now. This is a mistake, he hissed to Julianne. They don't know who I am. I need to get their attention. He tried to step over the velvet rope, but a security guard placed a hand like a cinder block on his chest. Back, sir. Do you know who I am? Marcus sputtered. I am the primary acquisition target. Back, the guard repeated. The delegation from Novus Horizon didn't stop at the VIP section. They didn't stop at the bar. They walked with military precision toward the back of the room, toward the marble pillar, toward the fern, toward the woman in the tuxedo suit. Marcus turned around, confused. He stood on his tiptoes, trying to see over the crowd. Where are they going? The bathrooms are back there. Is there a private room? He saw Arthur Pendleton stop. He saw the tall, distinguished chairman bow his head slightly. And then he saw her. Andrea stepped out from the shadow of the pillar. She didn't look shrinking anymore. She stood with her spine made of steel, her chin raised. Arthur Pendleton spoke, and in the dead silence of the ballroom his voice carried like a bell. "Madam CEO," Arthur said loud enough for the back row to hear, "the board is assembled. We await your keynote." The room exploded into murmurs. CEO. Who is she? Isn't that Sterling's ex-wife? Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. His knees turned to water. "No," he whispered. "That's impossible. She knits scarves." Emma didn't look at Arthur. She looked across the room, locking eyes with Marcus. She saw the shock. She saw the fear. She saw the realization that he was no longer the shark. She was the ocean, and he was drowning. Emma nodded to Arthur. "Thank you, Arthur. Let's begin." She began to walk toward the stage. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea. As she passed Marcus, she didn't stop. She didn't slow down. But she did say one thing just loud enough for him and Julianne to hear. "You were right, Marcus," she said, her voice cool and smooth. "I am here for business." She walked past him, the wake of her perfume smelling of jasmine and cold hard cash. Marcus stood frozen, his hand still half extended as the woman he called useless took the stairs to the stage, tapped the microphone, and prepared to burn his world to the ground. Emma stood behind the lucite podium, her hands resting lightly on the edges. The microphone hummed with anticipation. The ballroom, usually a cacophony of clinking glasses and gossip, was tomb silent. She looked out at the sea of faces. She saw the titans of industry, men and women who controlled the GDP of small nations. And in the front row, illuminated by the spillover light from the stage, she saw Marcus. He looked like a man who had been punched in the gut, but was trying to remember how to breathe. "Ladies and gentlemen," Emma began, her voice amplified, rich and commanding. "We often speak of logistics as the movement of goods. We talk about shipping lanes, cargo yields, and last-mile delivery. But at Novus Horizon, we believe logistics is actually the movement of truth." She clicked a remote in her hand. The massive LED screen behind her flared to life. "3 years ago, I began an experiment," she continued. "I wanted to see if an AI-driven model could outperform traditional intuition-based leadership. To do this, I needed a control group. I needed a company that represented the old way of doing things. A company run by ego rather than data. A company that valued appearance over solvency." Marcus stiffened. He gripped Julianne's hand so hard she winced and pulled away. "I have been tracking a specific mid-cap logistics firm for 36 months, Emma said. "I won't name them yet, but let's look at the numbers." A graph appeared on the screen. It was a jagged red line plummeting downward like a crashing plane. In Q1 of 2023, this company had a distinct advantage in the Asian market, Emma narrated, stepping out from behind the podium to walk the stage. She moved with the predatory grace of a panther. Their supply chain was robust, but the CEO decided to pivot. He ignored the algorithmic warnings of a fuel shortage in the South China Sea. Why? Because he wanted to impress investors with a high-risk, high-reward expansion into luxury goods transport. The room murmured. Heads turned. Everyone in the logistics world knew about the luxury goods debacle of 23. It was a legendary failure. The result, Emma pointed to the dip in the graph, was a 40% loss in liquidity. The company had to sell off its best assets just to keep the lights on. They fired 300 loyal employees. They cut pensions. Emma paused, letting the weight of that sink in. She looked directly at Marcus. "But the CEO?" she asked softly. "The CEO bought a Bentley that same quarter. He listed it as a transportation expense." A ripple of shock went through the crowd. This was dirty laundry being aired on a global stage. Marcus was shaking. He stood up, his face purple. "This is slander," he shouted, though his voice cracked. "She doesn't know what she's talking about." "Sit down, Sterling." A heavy-set man from Goldman Sachs grumbled from 2 seats away. "I want to hear this." Emma didn't even blink at Marcus's outburst. She clicked the remote again. Q3 2024, she continued. The company attempted to cover their losses by leveraging their warehouses. They took out high-interest loans betting on a market rebound that the data said was impossible. The algorithm predicted a recession in the manufacturing sector. The CEO predicted sunny skies because his golf buddies told him so. Another graph appeared. This one showed debt skyrocketing while revenue flatlined. "The company is Sterling Industries," Emma said, dropping the name like a guillotine blade. The gasp was audible, even though they suspected hearing it confirmed was electric. "And the reason I am sharing this case study," Emma said, "is not to mock the failure. It is to demonstrate the solution. Novus Horizon has been secretly running a shadow simulation of Sterling Industries for 3 years. If Mr. Sterling had used our protocols, if he had listened to the math instead of his vanity." She clicked the remote one last time. A green line appeared on the screen overlaying the red one. The green line soared upward, showing steady, massive growth. "Sterling Industries would currently be valued at $2 billion, Emma finished. "Instead, as of this morning's opening bell, it is functionally bankrupt." She turned to face Marcus fully. The spotlight hit her, making her look like an avenging angel in a tuxedo. "We aren't here to acquire a competitor, ladies and gentlemen," Emma said, her voice dropping to a terrifyingly calm register. "We are here to perform an autopsy. We are here to salvage the organs of a beast that died of its own arrogance." She smiled. "Thank you." The applause didn't start immediately. It took a second as the audience processed the brutality of what they had just witnessed. Then it erupted. A thunderous standing ovation. Not for Marcus, but for the woman who had just dissected him. Investors were already pulling out their phones shouting, "Sell Sterling, buy Novus," into their devices. Marcus stood amidst the applause, looking small. He looked around for support for an ally. He looked at Julianne. Julianne was clapping. She wasn't looking at Marcus. She was looking at Emma with a mixture of fear and awe. She was looking at the winner. Marcus grabbed her arm. "Stop clapping, you idiot. She just ruined us." Julianne pulled her arm away, smoothing her red dress. Her eyes were cold. "She didn't ruin us, Marcus. She just showed everyone the math. And frankly, I never liked that Bentley anyway." The cocktail hour following the keynote was less of a social gathering and more of a coronation. Emma stood in the center of the VIP lounge, holding a glass of mineral water she hadn't touched. She was surrounded. The CEO of FedEx wanted to discuss partnership. The Minister of Trade for Japan wanted to schedule a lunch. Ms. Andrea, a tech billionaire, said, leaning in. "That presentation was surgical. I've never seen a takedown like that. Was it personal?" Emma smiled a polite corporate smile. "Inefficiency is always personal to me, Mr. Musk." She saw Marcus hovering on the periphery. The security guards were watching him closely, but Emma gave a subtle nod to her head of security, David. "Let him in." The circle of admirers seemed to sense the approaching storm and parted. Marcus Sterling walked into the center. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. His tie was loosened, his hair disheveled. The smell of scotch oozing from his pores was now overpowering. "Emma," he rasped. "Mr. Sterling," she replied. "I believe you know everyone here, or perhaps they only know you by your debt-to-income ratio now." The billionaires around them chuckled. It was cruel, but in this world weakness was blood in the water. "Can I speak to you?" Marcus hissed. "Alone." "I have nothing to hide," Emma said. "Anything you have to say, you can say in front of my future partners." Marcus looked around, his eyes darting frantically. "You stole my company data. That's corporate espionage. I can have you arrested. I can sue you for every penny you have." Emma laughed. It was a genuine, amused sound. "Stole Marcus. I wrote the data. I built the database you use. I designed the login protocols. You never changed the admin passwords after you kicked me out. Admin 123. Really, it wasn't hacking. It was an open door. She took a step closer to him. Besides, the data I showed wasn't private. It's all in your quarterly filings. I just visualized it so people could see the pattern of your incompetence. Marcus's face twisted. He lunged forward, grabbing her wrist. You think you're so smart. You were nothing. You were a housewife. I made you. Security moved instantly, but Emma held up a hand. She didn't flinch. She looked down at his hand on her wrist, then up at his eyes. Let go, she said. The authority in her voice was absolute. Marcus, reacting to a muscle memory of when she used to handle the crises he caused, let go. I am offering you a lifeline, Marcus, she said, her voice dropping so only the inner circle could hear. Because despite everything, I don't want to see the employees of Sterling Industries starve. They are good people. They didn't ask for a captain who falls asleep at the wheel. Marcus straightened his jacket, trying to regain a shred of dignity. A lifeline. You want to acquire us? Fine. The valuation is $50 million. Cash. Emma shook her head slowly. No, Marcus. You misunderstood. I'm not buying the brand. The brand is toxic now. I'm buying the assets. The trucks, the warehouses, the shipping routes. She reached into her tuxedo jacket and pulled out a folded document. She slapped it against his chest. This is a purchase agreement, she said. Novus Horizon will absorb Sterling Industries' debts. We will honor the employee pensions you tried to cut. We will rebrand the fleet. And the payout? Marcus asked, his greedy eyes lighting up. How much for me? $1, Emma said. The silence that followed was heavy. $1, Marcus choked out. And immunity, Emma added. Immunity. We found the offshore accounts, Marcus, Emma whispered, leaning into his ear. The shell company in the Caymans where you've been funneling the maintenance budget, Blue Ocean Consulting. We know it's you. We have the wire transfers. We have the IP addresses. Marcus turned pale white. He looked like he was going to vomit. If you sign the company over to me for $1, Emma said, stepping back, I won't turn that file over to the SEC. I will let you walk away. You'll be broke, yes. You'll be a pariah, yes. But you won't be in federal prison. She checked her vintage Patek Philippe. You have 5 minutes to decide. After that, I email the file to the district attorney. Marcus looked at the document in his hand. He looked at the room full of people who used to envy him, now looking at him with pity and disgust. He looked for Julianne. She was gone. He saw her near the exit, chatting animatedly with a silver-haired oil tycoon, her hand resting on his bicep. She didn't even glance back. Marcus felt the world collapse. He was alone. Do you have a pen? He whispered, his voice broken. Arthur Pendleton stepped forward, offering a gold fountain pen. Here you go, son. Marcus took the pen. His hand shook violently as he laid the document on a cocktail table. He signed his name. He signed away his legacy, his ego, and his future. Done, he said, handing the paper to Emma. Are you happy you won? Emma took the paper. She checked the signature. Then she looked at Marcus with eyes that held no hate, no love, just a profound indifference. I didn't do this to win Marcus, she said. I did this because I was tired of being called useless by a man who couldn't find his own car keys without my help. She signaled to David. Escort Mr. Sterling out. He doesn't have a ticket for the gala dinner. Emma, wait, Marcus pleaded as David took his arm. Where am I supposed to go? They took my company car. My cards are maxed out. Emma turned her back on him, facing her board of directors. Over her shoulder, she delivered the final blow. I hear they're hiring night shift dispatchers at the Queens Depot, she said. You should apply. But Marcus, you'll have to learn how to use a computer first. As Marcus was dragged out of the ballroom shouting obscenities that no one listened to, Emma Andrea took a sip of her sparkling water. Arthur, she said to her chairman. Yes, Madam CEO. Schedule a board meeting for tomorrow morning at 8:00 a.m., she said. We have a lot of work to do. Sterling's infrastructure is a mess. It's going to take me months to clean up his mistakes. Of course, Arthur smiled. Shall we order champagne? Emma looked at the exit where her ex-husband had just vanished into the night. No, she said. Coffee. Black. We get to work. The glass tower of Sterling Industries stood in downtown Manhattan like a monument to excess. It was 40 floors of steel and ego. For the last 3 years, Emma had only seen it from the sidewalk, looking up at the penthouse office where Marcus played king while she lived in a basement. Today she wasn't looking up. She was walking in. It was Monday morning, 8:00 a.m. sharp. The lobby was bustling with employees swiping their badges, balancing coffees, and looking generally terrified. The news of the acquisition had broken over the weekend. Rumors were flying. Was everyone getting fired? Was the company dissolving? Who was this mystery woman? Emma walked through the revolving doors. She wasn't wearing a tuxedo today. She wore a cream-colored cashmere coat over a charcoal-sheath dress. She looked expensive, capable, and terrifyingly calm. She approached the security desk. The guard, a man named Jerry who had worked there for 10 years, looked up. His eyes widened. He recognized her. He remembered the days when she used to bring homemade cookies for the night shift. He also remembered the day Marcus had security escort her out of the building like a criminal. Mrs. Sterling, Jerry stammered, half rising from his chair. It's Ms. Andrea Jerry, Emma said, offering a warm, genuine smile. It's good to see you. How is your daughter's knee surgery recovering? Jerry's jaw dropped. You remember that? That was 4 years ago. I remember everything, Jerry, Emma said. Please unlock the executive elevator. Jerry scrambled to hit the button. Yes, ma'am. Right away, ma'am. And welcome back. As Emma walked toward the private elevator bank, the lobby went silent. It started as a ripple and became a wave. People stopped walking. Whispers hissed through the air like steam. Is that her? That's the ex-wife. I heard she bought the company for $1. I heard she's going to fire everyone who ever spoke to Marcus. Emma ignored them. She stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the 40th floor. When the doors opened, the smell hit her first. It was a mix of leather polish, stale cigar smoke, and fear. The executive suite. Sitting at the main reception desk, looking pale and trembling, was Mrs. Gable. She was 60 years old, a grandmother, and the most efficient executive assistant in New York. She had also been the one forced to type up Marcus's divorce papers. Mrs. Gable stood up, clutching a stapler as if it were a weapon. Ms. Andrea, I packed my things. I can leave immediately. Emma stopped. She looked at the cardboard box on Mrs. Gable's desk. It contained a framed photo of her grandchildren and a potted succulent. Why are you packing, Mrs. Gable? Emma asked. Because, well, I worked for him. Mrs. Gable whispered, tears welling in her eyes. I facilitated his appointments with that woman. I didn't want to, Emma, I swear. But I needed the health insurance. Emma walked over. She gently took the box from Mrs. Gable's hands and placed it back on the desk. Did you enjoy lying for him? Emma asked. I hated it. Mrs. Gable sobbed. I hate it every day. Then you aren't fired, Emma said. In fact, I'm giving you a 20% raise. But your job description is changing. You no longer manage affairs. You manage me, and I work harder than he ever did. Can you keep up? Mrs. Gable sniffled, wiping her eyes with a tissue. A spark of hope returned to her face. I can keep up, Ms. Andrea. I'm very fast. Good, Emma said. First order of business, call maintenance. I want everything in that office. She pointed to the double mahogany doors of the CEO's suite, removed. The furniture, the carpets, the curtains, especially the portrait of him behind the desk. Burn it, sell it. I don't care. Just get it out. And the staff meeting, Mrs. Gable asked, picking up her pen, her hands steadying. The department heads are waiting in the boardroom. They're anxious. Let them sweat for 10 minutes, Emma said, walking toward the boardroom. It's good for the circulation. Emma pushed open the heavy oak doors of the boardroom. 12 men and 3 women sat around the long table. These were the VPs, the directors, the people who had laughed at Marcus's jokes while the stock price tanked. They all stood up as she entered. It was a reflex of fear. Emma didn't sit at the head of the table. She remained standing, walking slowly around the perimeter of the room. She looked at the charts on the wall, charts that had been manipulated to hide losses. "Sit," she commanded. They sat. "I know what you're thinking," Emma said, her voice echoing in the silent room. "You're thinking I'm a scorned woman on a revenge tour. You're thinking I'm going to gut this company to spite my ex-husband." She stopped behind the chair of the VP of Operations, a man named Paul, who had once told Emma she didn't understand the complexities of trucking. "Paul," Emma said, "stand up." Paul stood, sweating profusely. "Emma, look, we were just following orders. Marcus was very controlling." "Paul, in 2022, you authorized a switch to a cheaper brake pad supplier for our fleet," Emma said. "You saved the company $200,000, but the failure rate of those brakes increased by 14%. We had 3 accidents that year. Drivers were injured." Paul turned white. That was a fiscal decision. It was a moral failure," Emma said. "You put profit over people. You're fired. Get out." Paul gaped. "You can't. I have a contract." "Your contract has a clause for gross negligence," Emma said coldly. "Security is waiting outside. Goodbye, Paul." As Paul was escorted out, the air in the room grew thin. The remaining executives looked like they were waiting for a firing squad. Emma walked to the head of the table. She placed her hands on the wood. "The rest of you," she said, looking them in the eye, "are on probation. I don't care about your loyalty to Marcus. I care about your competence. Novus Horizon operates on data transparency and efficiency. If you can adapt, you stay. If you try to hide numbers, if you try to play politics, you are gone." She softened her tone just a fraction. "However," she continued, "if you stay, you will see this company grow. I am reinstating the pension match. I am upgrading the fleet. And I am bringing the logistics into the 21st century. We aren't Sterling Industries anymore. As of today, we are Novus Logistics. We build the future. Are you with me?" The executives looked at each other. They saw the fire in her eyes. They realized, perhaps for the first time, that they finally had a real leader. One by one they nodded. "Yes, Ms. Andrea." "Good," Emma said. "Now get out of here and get back to work. We have a lot of mess to clean up." As the room cleared, Emma finally sat down in the chairman's chair. She exhaled a long, shaky breath. Her hands were trembling slightly. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. Mrs. Gable poked her head in. "Ms. Andrea, there's a call for you on line 1. It's external." "Who is it?" "He didn't say his name," Mrs. Gable said, looking worried. "He just said to tell you the little fish has eaten the medium fish, but the shark is hungry." Emma frowned. She picked up the phone. "This is Andrea." The voice on the other end was smooth, deep, and sounded like old money and menace. "Congratulations, Emma," the voice said. "You put on quite a show at the plaza. Truly. I haven't seen Marcus cry like that since college." "Who is this?" Emma demanded. "My name is Silas Thorne," the man said. "I run Vanguard Global. We own most things. And I'm afraid, Ms. Andrea, that you've just acquired something that belongs to me." "I own the deed, Mr. Thorne," Emma said, her grip tightening on the receiver. "It belongs to me. For now," Silas chuckled. "Enjoy the view from the 40th floor, Emma. It's a long way down. I'll be seeing you soon." The line went dead. Emma stared at the phone. She had thought the war was over. She realized with a sinking feeling in her gut that the battle with Marcus had just been the tutorial. The real war had just begun. 3 months had passed since the takeover. Under Emma's leadership, Novus Logistics had performed a miracle. The stock had stabilized. The bleeding had stopped. The drivers, realizing that Emma actually cared about their safety schedules, were working with renewed morale. The Ghost Protocol AI was now fully integrated into the legacy trucks, optimizing routes in real time. But Emma wasn't sleeping. The call from Silas Thorne haunted her. She had researched him. Vanguard Global was a private equity firm that specialized in distressed assets. They were vultures. They didn't fix companies, they stripped them for parts. And Silas Thorne was the head butcher. It turned out that Marcus had owed Vanguard money, a lot of money. The debts, Emma had assumed, were bad, but she hadn't realized that Marcus had used the company's physical infrastructure, the land, the warehouses, sat on as collateral for a personal loan from Vanguard's shadow banking division. Emma was in the middle of a strategy meeting with Thomas Wright when the lights in the conference room flickered. "Power surge?" Thomas asked, looking up. Suddenly the large screens on the wall turned red. A single word pulsed in black text: "Locked." "What is this?" Emma stood up. "Is this a drill?" Her phone buzzed, then Thomas's. Then everyone's in the room. "Ms. Andrea." Mrs. Gable burst into the room looking frantic. "The dispatch system is down. All of it. The trucks can't get their route updates. The warehouse gates are electronically locked. Nothing is moving." Emma ran to the nearest computer terminal. She typed in her admin override code. "Access denied." "It's a ransomware attack," Thomas said, his face pale. "Someone has seized the mainframe. They've paralyzed the entire supply chain. If we can't move goods within 4 hours, we miss the Amazon delivery window. We'll face millions in penalties." Emma closed her eyes for a second, forcing her heart rate down. "Is it external? Did they hack the firewall?" "No," Thomas said, his fingers flying across a keyboard. "That's the strange part. The intrusion didn't come from the outside. It came from a legacy port. Someone logged in using a backdoor that predates the Novus integration." Emma felt a chill go down her spine. A backdoor. "Show me the login ID," she ordered. Thomas pulled up the code. "It's encrypted, but the user handle is King Midas." Emma stopped breathing. King Midas. That was Marcus's old handle for his fantasy football league. It was his gamer tag. It was the password he used for everything because he thought he had the golden touch. "He's helping them," Emma whispered. "Who?" "Marcus," Emma said. "He's working with Thorne." It made perfect sense. Perfect. Marcus knew the old systems. He knew where the physical server junctions were located in the basement, the ones Emma hadn't had time to replace yet. He knew the skeletons of the building. Silas Thorne had money, but he didn't know the architecture of Sterling Industries. Marcus did. "He's sabotaging us from the inside," Emma said, her voice turning to ice. "Where is the physical breach?" "System says." "Terminal 4, the Jersey City distribution hub," Thomas said. "That's our biggest hub," Emma said. "Get the car and call the police." "Emma, it's dangerous," Thomas warned. "If they are there." "I don't care," Emma said, grabbing her coat. "He's not going to burn my company down twice." An hour later, Emma's black SUV screeched into the parking lot of the Jersey City hub. It was chaos. Trucks were lined up for a mile idling. Drivers were standing around confused and angry. The massive automated gates were shut tight. Emma jumped out of the car, flanked by David and 2 other security guards. "Stay here," she told Thomas. "Keep trying to patch the code remotely." She ran toward the maintenance entrance around the back. The door had been pried open. Emma entered the dark warehouse. It was a cavernous space, usually filled with the hum of conveyor belts and robots. Now it was dead silent. The only light came from the emergency LEDs, casting eerie red shadows. She heard voices coming from the server cage on the mezzanine level. She climbed the metal stairs, her heels clicking softly on the grate. She signaled David to stay back and be ready. Inside the cage, illuminated by the glow of a laptop screen, stood two men. One was a tall, imposing man in a trench coat, Silas Thorne. He looked bored, checking his watch. The other man was hunched over a terminal, frantically typing. He wore a cheap windbreaker and looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Hurry up, Marcus," Silas said, his voice echoing. "The encryption needs to hold for another hour to trigger the default clause on the loan." "I'm trying," Marcus snapped. "She changed the subroutines. It's harder than I thought. But I remember the bypass. I just need a minute." Emma stepped into the light. "You never did have the patience for the hard work, did you, Marcus?" Marcus jumped, spinning around. He nearly knocked over the laptop. When he saw Emma, his face twisted into a mask of pure hatred. "You," he spat. "Hello, Emma," Silas Thorne said smoothly. He didn't look surprised. He looked delighted. "I was wondering how long it would take you to figure it out. You're sharper than your ex-husband described." "Get away from the terminal, Marcus," Emma said, ignoring Silas. "No!" Marcus shouted. He looked unhinged. His eyes were bloodshot. "You took everything from me. My company, my reputation. Julianne left me for a petroleum heir. I'm living in a studio apartment above a bowling alley. Emma, a bowling alley." "You did that to yourself," Emma said calmly. "I built this place," Marcus screamed, gesturing to the silent warehouse. "And I can destroy it, Mr. Thorne promised me. He promised me if I help him trigger the default, he'll give me the CEO role back once Vanguard takes over." Emma looked at Silas. Silas smirked. It was the smirk of a man watching a dog chase a car it would never catch. "Oh, Marcus," Emma said, her voice filled with pity. "Do you really think he's going to make you CEO? He's using you to break the lock. Once he has the company, he's going to strip it and sell the land for condos. He doesn't want a logistics company, and he certainly doesn't want a failure like you running it." Marcus froze. He looked at Silas. Is that true?" Silas sighed, dusting invisible lint off his coat. "Marcus, please. Don't be tedious. You're a tool, a blunt instrument. Once the door is open, we discard the crowbar." Marcus looked shattered. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He had sold his soul again, and this time the devil wasn't even buying, he was just renting. "Marcus," Emma said, stepping forward, "step away from the computer. I can stop the police from pressing charges if you stop this now." Marcus looked at the keyboard. His finger hovered over the Enter key. If he pressed it, the system would wipe itself. The data loss would be catastrophic. Novus would be finished. He looked at Emma. Then he looked at Silas, who was looking at him with utter contempt. "I'm sorry, Emma," Marcus whispered, but he didn't press Enter. He grabbed the laptop with both hands and smashed it onto the concrete floor. Sparks flew. The screen shattered. The connection to the mainframe severed instantly. "You idiot!" Silas roared, losing his composure for the first time. The warehouse lights flickered and then buzzed back on. The red locked signs turned green. The conveyor belts roared to life. The system sensing the intrusion was gone, rebooted to Emma's secure backup. Marcus stood over the broken laptop, breathing heavily. He looked up at Emma. "I didn't do it for you," he muttered. "I did it because I hate him more." Suddenly the side door burst open. Police officers led by David swarmed the platform. "Hands in the air." Silas Thorne raised his hands, looking annoyed rather than afraid. "This is a misunderstanding. I am a consultant conducting a penetration test." Marcus didn't raise his hands. He just slumped against the railing, defeated. Emma walked up to Silas. She stood toe-to-toe with the billionaire. "Get out of my warehouse," she said, "and tell your lawyers to get ready, because attempted corporate sabotage is a felony. And I have cameras in this server cage. I have you on video." Silas's eyes narrowed. He looked at the small black dome in the corner of the cage. He smiled a cold, tight smile. "Well played, Miss Andrea. Round 1 goes to you." He turned and walked toward the police, confident his lawyers would have him out in an hour. Emma turned to Marcus. He was being handcuffed by an officer. He looked at her, his eyes filled with tears. "Emma." "Don't," she said softly. "You made your choice, Marcus. You chose to be a victim. Again." I have nowhere to go," he sobbed. Emma watched them take him away. She felt a pang of sadness mourning the man he could have been, but she strangled it quickly. She had a company to run. She walked to the edge of the mezzanine and looked out over the warehouse floor. The robots were moving. The packages were flowing. The heart of the company was beating again. She pulled out her phone and dialed Mrs. Gable. "We're back online," Emma said. "Tell the drivers to start their engines." Justice for Marcus Sterling didn't come with a bang, but with a whimper. While Emma was busy expanding Novus Logistics into a global empire, Marcus was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison for corporate espionage. Emma didn't attend the trial. She was too busy closing a deal in Tokyo. 1 year later, Emma finally went to see him. The visitation room in upstate New York was cold and smelled of bleach. When the guards brought Marcus in, he looked like a ghost of his former self. His hair was thinning. His posture slumped. The arrogance that had once filled ballrooms was gone, replaced by a nervous twitch. "You came," Marcus rasped, sitting opposite her. A flicker of hope lit his eyes. "I knew you wouldn't abandon me. When I get out, we can start over right. I can consult for you." Emma didn't smile. She simply slid a white envelope across the metal table. Marcus opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a photograph of a sprawling modern estate in the Hamptons, the dream house he had obsessed over for a decade, the house he had told Emma she would never be good enough to step inside. "You bought it," he gasped, tears welling up. "You bought our house? Is this for us?" "I bought it last week," Emma said, her voice calm and deadly. "But not to live in." "Then why?" "I bought it to demolish it," she replied. Marcus froze. "What?" "I'm bulldozing it on Tuesday," Emma explained. "I'm donating the land to build the Andrea Institute, a tuition-free school for women in tech who were told they were useless. I'm turning your monument of vanity into a foundation for their future." Marcus stared at the photo, the color draining from his face. The ultimate symbol of his status was being erased to help the very people he despised. "You can't," he whispered. "That's cruel." Emma stood up, smoothing her coat. "It's not cruel, Marcus. It's efficient. That house had a rotten foundation, just like you." "Emma, don't leave me here," he begged as the guards grabbed his shoulders. "I'm nobody without you." Emma paused at the door, looking back one last time. "You were always nobody, Marcus. You just had a loud microphone. I took the microphone away." She walked out into the sunlight. Her driver, David, was waiting. "Back to the office, Ms. Andrea." Emma looked at the skyline of the city she now owned. "No, David. Take me to Queens. My mom is making pot roast." As the car drove away, Emma didn't look back. The past was demolished. The future was hers to build. And that is how Emma Andrea went from a discarded wife in a parking lot to the CEO of the year. She proved that the most dangerous person in the room isn't the one shouting, it's the one quietly doing the math. Marcus learned the hard way, never call a woman useless when she's holding the keys to your life. If this story of karma and absolute boss-level revenge satisfied you, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel. What was your favorite moment? When she bought his company for $1? Or when she bulldozed his dream house? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for more stories where the underdog takes it all. Thanks for watching.